homeless man heard crying coming from a trash can. What he pulled out shocked everyone. The sound cut through the cold Chicago dawn like a razor. Michael stopped pushing his cardboard cart and tilted his head, trying to identify where the desperate crying was coming from. It was 3 in the morning when he first heard it. The cries came from inside a metal trash can at the corner of Michigan Avenue and Wicker Park. Michael approached cautiously, his heart racing with each step. When he lifted the lid, his eyes widened. Inside, wrapped in a dirty blue blanket, was a baby. The little one couldn't have been more than a few days old, tiny fists clenched and trembling from the cold as he cried with all the strength of his small lungs. "Dear Lord," Michael whispered, picking up the child with infinite care. The baby stopped crying as soon as he felt human warmth, opening his little eyes and staring at the homeless man's bearded face. The scene was witnessed by Mrs. Jenkins, who worked at the corner bakery and was arriving to open the shop. The 65-year-old woman nearly dropped her keys when she saw Michael pulling the baby from the trash can. "Michael, what is this?" She rushed to him, her face pale with shock. "Just found him, Mrs. Jenkins. He was crying in there." Michael rocked the baby, trying to soothe him. "Who would do such a thing?" Mrs. Jenkins touched the baby's forehead. "He's freezing. Come on, let's get inside the bakery. We need to warm this little angel up." Inside the bakery, under the yellow glow of the lights, they could examine the child better. It was a boy, seemingly healthy despite the circumstances. Along with the blanket was a crumpled note. Michael, who barely knew how to read, handed it to Mrs. Jenkins. "Please take care of him. I can't anymore." The baker read, her voice trembling. "That's it, no name, nothing." "We need to call the authorities," Mrs. Jenkins said, reaching for the phone. "Wait." Michael clutched the baby to his chest. "You know what'll happen. They'll take him to one of those shelters. Then he'll bounce from family to family. I've seen it before." "But Michael, you live on the streets. How can you take care of a baby?" Michael's eyes filled with tears. "I know I got nothing, Mrs. Jenkins. But neither does this little one. Maybe we can help each other." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us newcomers out. Now back to the story. Mrs. Jenkins sighed deeply. She had known Michael for years. He had appeared in the neighborhood nearly a decade ago, always polite, never asking for more than cardboard to sell. There was something different about him, a dignity that life on the streets hadn't taken away. "Here's what we'll do," she decided. "First, we'll figure out how to feed this baby. Then we'll think about what comes next." She went to the back of the bakery and returned with a carton of milk. "I'll warm it up. My grandson is 2. I still have a bottle stored here." While Mrs. Jenkins prepared the milk, Michael studied the baby. The little boy had fair skin, fine dark hair, and a crescent-shaped birthmark on his neck. His tiny fingers gripped Michael's thick finger with surprising strength. "You're a fighter, huh, little guy?" he murmured. "Survived a night in the trash. You're tougher than most folks out there." The baby drank the bottle eagerly, as if he hadn't eaten in hours. Michael held him with the gentleness of someone cradling porcelain, his calloused arms forming a secure cradle. "Michael?" Mrs. Jenkins sat beside him. "Tell me the truth. Why did this hit you so hard?" The homeless man stayed silent for a long moment, just watching the baby feed. When he finally spoke, his voice was rough with emotion. "I had a son once, Mrs. Jenkins, a long time ago before I ended up like this." He gestured to his worn-out clothes. "I lost him and my wife in an accident. After that, nothing made sense anymore. I lost my job, my home, the will to live. Ended up here." Mrs. Jenkins covered her mouth with her hand, her eyes brimming with tears. In all these years, it was the first time Michael had spoken about his past. "When I saw this little one in the dumpster," he continued, "it was like God had given me a second chance. I know I'm not in any position, but I can try. I can be better than I was. And what if the mother changes her mind? If she comes looking, then I'll give him back, but until then I'll take care of him like he's my own." Mrs. Jenkins made a decision that would change many lives. "All right, I'll help you, but on one condition. You'll have to accept help, Michael. You can't raise a baby on the streets." "I'll take anything, Mrs. Jenkins. Anything for the little one." The baker picked up her phone again. "I'll call my friend Sharon. She's a retired social worker. She'll know what to do without involving the authorities for now." While Mrs. Jenkins made the call, Michael rocked the baby, who had already finished his bottle. The little one watched him with curious eyes, as if recognizing in this man, battered by life, someone who would protect him. Outside, the city was beginning to wake up. The first buses passed down the avenue, hurried workers bought bread for breakfast. No one could imagine the drama unfolding inside the small bakery. Sharon arrived in less than half an hour. She was a sturdy woman with white hair tied in a bun and eyes that had seen much in her 70 years. She examined the baby with experienced hands. "He's no more than a week old," she diagnosed. "He's malnourished, but nothing proper. Care won't fix." "Michael, do you realize what you're getting into?" "I do, ma'am. I know it's crazy, but I have to try." Sharon studied him for a long moment. "You know, in 40 years of social work, I've seen a lot. I've seen rich folks abandon their kids, poor folks work themselves, to the bone raising 5, 6 children. What matters isn't what's in your pocket, it's what's in your heart. So you'll help?" "I will. But we'll do this right. First, we need a place for you two. I know a boarding house. Nearby, the owner owes me favors. It's nothing fancy, but it's better than the streets." "I don't have money for rent," Michael said, lowering his head in shame. "Not for now. You'll work there, maintenance, cleaning. In exchange, you'll get a room and meals, and I'll arrange the paperwork to get the baby's situation sorted." The baby started crying again. Michael rocked him gently, humming a song he used to sing for his own lost son so many years ago. The crying slowly faded until it stopped completely. "He already trusts you," Mrs. Jenkins observed, moved. "What should we call him?" Michael asked. "Everyone needs a name." "How about Ethan?" Sharon suggested. "The angel who brings good news. Because I'm sure this little one came to change your life, Michael." "Ethan," Michael repeated, smiling for the first time in years. "I like it. Ethan, my little warrior." The 3 people present had no idea of the storm that was about to unfold. The decision to keep Ethan had been made, but the consequences of that choice would ripple in ways no one could foresee. Mrs. Jenkins packed a bag with groceries and some baby clothes she kept for donations. Sharon made a list of urgent necessities. Michael just held Ethan, marveling at every tiny movement. "Let's head to the boarding house now," Sharon decided. "The sooner you two settle in, the better." Mrs. Thompson's boarding house was 3 blocks away. It was an old 2-story building, one of those stubbornly holding on against the gentrification of downtown Chicago. The owner, an 80-year-old black woman, greeted the group with suspicion that quickly turned to emotion upon hearing the story. "You can use the back room," she said after a long moment of thought. "It's small, but it has a sink. That'll make it easier to care for the baby. And there's a window that gets morning sun. It'll be good for the little one." The room was truly tiny, but to Michael it felt like a palace. There was a single bed, an old wardrobe, and a dresser. Sharon was already making plans. "We'll need a crib. I know an NGO that donates used furniture. I'll take care of it tomorrow. And diapers, formula." Michael was beginning to grasp the enormity of the challenge. "One thing at a time," Mrs. Jenkins said, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You're not alone in this, Michael." Ethan slept soundly in his new protector's arms, unaware that his arrival had created an unlikely family: a homeless man, a baker, a retired social worker, and an 80-year-old boarding house owner, all brought together by the fate of an abandoned baby. Sharon left with a promise to return the next day with more supplies. Mrs. Jenkins needed to get back to the bakery, but left her phone number. "Anything, anytime you call me." "Understood." Michael. Alone with Ethan in the little room, Michael sat on the bed holding the baby. Through the window, he watched the city's frantic movement. How many stories of abandonment, pain, and resilience were unfolding at that very moment on every corner. "We'll make it, Ethan," he promised. "I failed once, but I won't fail. You." The baby opened his little eyes and seemed to agree. At that moment, Michael didn't know Ethan's mother was less than 3 miles away, consumed by guilt and despair. He didn't know the story of the baby found in the dumpster, would soon spread through the neighborhood and reach ears that would complicate everything. He didn't know the immense challenges ahead. All he knew was that this little being needed him. And for the first time in a decade, Michael had a reason to fight. The afternoon passed quickly. Michael discovered that caring for a baby was far more complex than he'd imagined. Ethan needed to be fed every 3 hours, changed constantly, soothed when he cried. But every smile from the baby, every moment those little eyes looked at him with trust, made all the effort worth it. Mrs. Thompson appeared in the doorway with a plate of food. "You need to eat too," she said matter-of-factly. "Babies drain your energy." As Michael ate, she took Ethan into her arms with the ease of someone who had raised many children and grandchildren. "This is a special baby," she remarked. "There's something different about him. But Michael, you know sooner or later they'll come looking for him, right?" "I know. But until then, I'll do my best." "You remind me of my late husband," Mrs. Thompson said, gently rocking Ethan. "He once found a child too, not in a dumpster, thank God, but abandoned at a church door. We raised him as our own. He's a doctor now, you know. Still visits me now and then. You never told the authorities?" "Back then, it was different. The 60s, you know, less bureaucracy. We just registered him as ours, and that was that. These days, it's more complicated, but not impossible. Sharon knows what she's doing." The sun was setting when Michael heard a commotion downstairs. Raised voices, hurried footsteps. His heart raced. Was someone looking for Ethan? The door opened and Sharon rushed in, her face tense. "Michael, we have a problem. The news has spread. There's a reporter downstairs wanting to talk to you. Someone told them about the baby, found in the dumpster." "I don't want to talk to anyone," Michael said, holding Ethan tighter. "I know, but if this becomes news, the authorities will get involved whether we like it or not. We need to act fast." "What do you suggest?" Sharon sat on the bed, clearly worried. "I know a lawyer. He handles custody and adoption cases. He can guide us on how to proceed legally. But Michael, it's going to be tough. You understand that, right? A single man without a steady job wanting custody of a baby. But I won't give up on him." "I'm not saying to give up. I'm saying we need to be smart. Build a support network. Show that you're capable, even if things aren't ideal." Ethan started whimpering. It was time for another bottle. While Sharon kept explaining the legal complications, Michael prepared the milk with the skill of someone already adapting to the routine. "First, we'll need a steady job for you." Sharon jotted notes in a little notebook. "Then proof of stable housing. The boarding house will do for now. We'll also need witnesses to vouch that you can care for a child." "Do you think I'm capable?" Michael asked as he gave Ethan the bottle. "I do, but it's not just what I think, it's what a judge will think." Outside the room, life in the boarding house went on. Other tenants returned from work. The smell of cooking drifted up the stairs. TVs playing created a familiar urban symphony. There, in that small room, the future of 2 lives was being decided. "Tomorrow morning, we'll go to the lawyer," Sharon decided. "Tonight, rest. Take care of Ethan. Oh, and Michael, maybe it's time to shave and get a haircut. Appearance matters at times like these." After Sharon left, Michael looked at himself in the small mirror above the sink. The man staring back was in dire need of grooming. Long graying hair, a scruffy beard, deep wrinkles marking years of hardship. "I'll clean up for you, little one," he promised Ethan. "I'll become someone you can be proud of again." Night fell over Chicago. At the boarding house, Michael spent his first night as Ethan's guardian. At every cry, he jumped out of bed. At every odd movement, he checked if the baby was breathing. It was exhausting, but also renewing. Every act of care for Ethan was a step away from the broken man he'd been for so long. Around 2 in the morning, as he rocked a restless Ethan to sleep, Michael heard a strange noise in the hallway. Hesitant footsteps, muffled sniffles. Someone was crying outside. Carefully, so as not to wake the baby, he cracked the door open. In the dimly lit hallway, a young woman leaned against the wall, her face buried in her hands, her body shaking with sobs. "Miss, are you okay?" Michael whispered. The woman startled, and seeing Michael holding the baby, her eyes widened. She was young, no more than 25, with messy brown hair and plain clothes. but it was the birthmark on her neck that caught Michael's attention, a half-moon identical to Ethan's. "Oh God," she gasped. "It's him! It's my baby!" Michael's heart stopped. There she was, the mother who'd abandoned Ethan, in the dumpster, the woman who could take away the reason he'd found to live again. "Please," she begged, "please let me see him, just see him. I won't take him from you." Michael stood frozen. Part of him wanted to shut the door, protect Ethan from the woman who'd left him. But another part, the part that still believed in humanity despite everything, saw the genuine despair in her eyes. "Come in," he finally said. But quietly, "People are sleeping." The woman stepped into the small room, her eyes locked on Ethan. Silent tears streamed down her face as she watched the baby sleeping in Michael's arms. "Is he okay?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Is he healthy?" "He is. A little underweight, but nothing serious." Michael studied her, trying to understand. "Why did you do it? Why did you leave him in the dumpster?" The woman collapsed into the only chair in the room, her whole body trembling. "I didn't throw him away. I placed him carefully. I hid and waited for someone to find him. When I saw you picking him up, when I saw you were a good person." She couldn't continue, choking back sobs. "But why?" Michael insisted, holding Ethan tighter. "You don't understand," she sniffled. "I had no choice. His father said if I didn't get rid of the baby, he'd kill me. And I believed him. You don't know Derek. He's capable of anything. You could have asked for help, gone to the police." "The police?" She laughed bitterly. "Derek is..." "The police. A military officer. He's got friends everywhere. Said if I showed up with the baby, he'd deny it was his, call me a prostitute. Who'd believe me?" Michael felt the weight of her words. A cop threatening his own wife, forcing her to abandon their child. The story was more complicated than he'd imagined. "How did you find me?" he asked. "I kept circling the block, saw you go into the bakery, then come here. I asked other tenants at the boarding house. They said a man had arrived with a baby. I had to know if he was okay. And now, do you want him back?" The woman who finally introduced herself as Jessica shook her head. "I can't. Derek's still looking for me. If he finds out I didn't get rid of the baby..." She shuddered. "But I needed to know my son was safe. He is. I'll take care of him like he's my own. You don't even know me. Why would you do that?" Michael told his story, losing his family, years on the streets, the emptiness Ethan had filled. Jessica listened silently, tears streaming down her face. "So that's it," she said when he finished. "My son saved you and you saved him. Maybe this was meant to be. But what about you? You can't run forever." "I'll go to my aunt's in Michigan. Derek doesn't know where she lives. I'll start over there, try to forget." Her voice broke, as if forgetting a child were possible. Ethan stirred in Michael's arms, blinking his little eyes open. When he saw his mother, something seemed to light up in him. He reached his tiny arms toward her. "Can I?" Jessica asked, voice trembling. "Just for a moment?" Michael hesitated, but finally handed the baby over. Jessica cradled him like he was made of glass, kissing his forehead, breathing in his sweet baby scent. "Forgive me, my love," she whispered. "Forgive me for not being strong enough to protect you." That's when the door burst open. A large man in uniform stormed in. His eyes scanned the room and locked onto Jessica holding the baby. "Found you, you worthless tramp," Officer Derek growled, "and you still disobeyed me." The terror on Jessica's face was palpable. She clutched Ethan to her chest as if her body alone could shield him. "Derek, please, shut your mouth." He stepped forward. "You're coming with me, and that bastard's going where he should have gone in the first place." That's when Michael stepped between them. Years on the streets had taught him to avoid trouble, but something had changed in him. Ethan had changed him. "If you want them, you go through me," he said, with a calm he didn't feel. Derek laughed. "You? A filthy bum trying to stand up. To me? Move before I arrest you for obstruction. Go ahead. But you'll have to explain why you're here threatening a woman and a child. There are witnesses, you know. These walls are thin, everyone's listening. Sure enough, doors creaked open in the hallway. Other tenants, drawn by the commotion, watched the scene unfold. Mrs. Thompson appeared in her floral robe, face stern. "What's this ruckus in my establishment?" She glared at Derek. "Officer, unless you have a warrant, I suggest you leave." "This is family business, old lady. Old is your mother." Mrs. Thompson didn't back down. "And in my house, I make the rules. Either you leave nicely or I call your commanding officer. Captain Reynolds, isn't it? We play cards together every Saturday." The mention of Derek's superior made him hesitate. He looked around, seeing the hostile faces of the boarding house residents. The situation had spiraled out of control. "This isn't over," he pointed at Jessica. "You know what's coming if you keep up this nonsense." "She won't be keeping up anything," Michael said, "because the baby stays with me. Jessica leaves, disappears from your life, and you'll leave her alone." "Who do you think you are? To give me orders? I'm the man who found your son in the trash. The man who can tell that story to a lot of people. Imagine the headline, 'Cop Forces Woman to Abandon Newborn.' Your career would be over." Derek turned red with anger, but Michael continued, "Or you can let things be. Jessica disappears. You go on with your life and no one has to know a thing." For long seconds, the silence was absolute. Derek looked from Michael to Jessica, weighing his options. Finally, he took a step back. "You've got 24 hours to disappear," he told Jessica. "If I see you in this town again, you know what happens." He left, slamming the door. The boarding house residents slowly dispersed, but the silent support they'd shown lingered in the air. Jessica was shaking so badly she could barely hold Ethan. Michael took the baby back, noticing how the little one seemed to sense the tension. "You really need to leave," he said softly, "for your own safety." "I know." She touched Ethan's face one last time. "Take good care of him. Please. He's the only good thing I've ever done." "I will. I promise." Jessica took off a thin silver chain with a small St. Mary medal. "It was my mother's." She placed it around Michael's neck. "To protect both of you." She kissed Ethan once more, took a deep breath, and walked out of the room. Michael stood still, listening to her footsteps fade down the stairs and into the night. "Now it's just us again, little one," he murmured to Ethan. "But we'll be okay. Your mom's brave, you know. She did what she thought was best to protect you." The rest of the night passed without sleep. Michael rocked Ethan while thinking about everything that had happened. In less than 24 hours, his life had completely changed. From a homeless man with no prospects, he'd become a child's guardian, stood up to a corrupt cop, and discovered there were still good people willing to help. When the sun rose, casting light into the small room, Michael had already made several decisions. He'd fight for Ethan with everything he had. He'd get back on his feet, find work, and give the boy the life he deserved. It wouldn't be easy, but nothing important in life ever was. Mrs. Jenkins was the first to show up, bringing fresh bread and milk. "I heard what happened last night," she said while making coffee. "The whole boarding house is talking. You were very brave, Michael." "It wasn't bravery, it was necessity. I couldn't let him take Ethan. And the mother? She's gone. For her sake and the baby's." Mrs. Jenkins sighed. "What a sad situation, but you did the right thing. Now, let's get to what matters." Sharon called. "She scheduled the lawyer for 10 today, and there's more. I got you a job." Michael nearly dropped his coffee cup. "A job? My brother-in-law runs a small building maintenance company. He needs a helper. It's not much, but it's steady work. Important for the custody issue. Mrs. Jenkins, I don't know how to thank you. Thank me by taking good care of that boy. That's all we need." At 9, Sharon arrived with bags of clothes and a used stroller. "Donations," she explained. "And look, I managed to schedule Ethan for the health clinic this afternoon. He needs to start his vaccinations." So much to do. Michael felt momentarily overwhelmed. "That's normal when you have a baby," Sharon smiled. "But first, let's take care of your appearance. The barber is right on the corner." An hour later, Michael barely recognized himself in the mirror. Hair trimmed, beard neat, wearing a dress shirt borrowed from another boarding house resident. He looked almost respectable. "Now that's better," Mrs. Thompson approved. "You look presentable." Mr. Goldstein's office was in the old downtown of Chicago. It was small but well kept, with diplomas on the wall and a professional atmosphere. The lawyer, a middle-aged man with a fatherly air, listened to the whole story, without interrupting. "Complicated situation," he said when Michael finished, "but not impossible. The fact that the birth mother abandoned the child works in our favor, but we need to do everything by the book." "What does that mean?" Michael held Ethan, who slept, peacefully. "First, we notify Child Protective Services about the found child. They'll open a case. Normally, they place the child in a shelter, but we can request temporary custody for you. What if they deny it? Then we fight. But with a job, stable housing, and this support network you're building, we have a good chance. The fact that you saved the child also helps." Mr. Goldstein explained the whole process. It would be long, bureaucratic, psychological evaluations, social worker visits, court hearings, but it was possible. "I'll be honest," he concluded. "It won't be easy. A single man with a history of homelessness wanting to adopt, they'll question everything. But I've seen tougher cases succeed. The important thing is not to give up." "I won't give up," Michael said firmly. "This boy is my second chance." Leaving the office, the group headed to the health clinic. Dr. Rodriguez, the pediatrician who examined Ethan, was impressed. For a baby who spent the night in such harsh conditions, he's surprisingly well. Mild dehydration, slightly underweight, but nothing serious. She gave him his first vaccines and advised on feeding and care. Ethan cried during the procedures, but quickly calmed in Michael's arms. "He recognizes you as a safe figure," the doctor observed. "That's very good. A strong emotional bond is crucial at this age." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us newcomers. Now, back to the story. Back at the boarding house, Michael was in for a surprise. The small room had been transformed. A used but sturdy crib sat in one corner, an improvised changing table on the dresser, and shelves stocked with diapers, baby clothes, and hygiene products. "Everyone here pitched in," Mrs. Thompson explained proudly. "They all wanted to help." Michael had to sit down, too moved to speak. After years living on society's fringes, invisible and ignored, suddenly an entire community was rallying around him. The following days fell into a busy routine. Michael started his job at the maintenance company, waking at 5 a.m. Mrs. Thompson watched Ethan during his shifts, with help from other boarding house women who took turns. The work was hard, hauling materials, cleaning construction sites, minor repairs, but Michael embraced it gratefully. Every day with a paycheck was a step closer to securing permanent custody of Ethan. Nights were for the baby. Michael had developed a routine: bath, bottle, made up stories about a brave boy who slayed dragons and saved kingdoms. Ethan listened intently, his little eyes fixed on his guardian's face. A week passed before the first complication arose. Michael was returning from work when he saw a police cruiser parked outside the boarding house. His blood ran cold. Was Derek back to cause trouble? But it wasn't Derek. Two plainclothes officers were waiting in the reception area, accompanied by a social worker from Child Protective Services. "Mr. Michael?" The woman, who introduced herself as Rebecca, had a stern demeanor. "We received a report about a child in irregular circumstances at this address." A report? Michael felt the ground disappear beneath him. Who reported it? "That's confidential, but we need to verify the conditions the child is living in. Where is the baby?" "With Mrs. Thompson. I work during the day." "You work?" She jotted something down. "For how long?" Michael explained the situation as they went upstairs to see Ethan. The baby was in Mrs. Thompson's room, clean, well-fed, surrounded by 3 women competing for the privilege of holding him. The social worker inspected everything: Michael's room, the hygiene conditions, Ethan's food. She asked dozens of questions, noting everything on her clipboard. "I'll be frank, Mr. Michael," she said finally. "The situation is irregular. The child should have been immediately referred to the authorities, but..." She looked at Ethan, who was smiling in Michael's arms. "I can see he's well cared for. Are you going to take him from me?" "Not for now, but you need to get everything. In order urgently. I'll file for temporary custody, but there will be oversight. Weekly visits, reports. If there's any issue, the child will be removed. After she left, Michael collapsed onto the bed, clutching Ethan tightly to his chest. Who could have reported him? Mrs. Jenkins was furious. I bet it was Derek, Mrs. Thompson huffed. He can't do anything directly, so he's using the legal route. It doesn't matter, Michael said. What matters is that Ethan stays with me. I'll do everything right. I won't give them any reason to take him. But the trials were just beginning. The next day, the owner of the company where Michael worked called him in for a talk. Michael, you've been a good employee, but I got a call today. The man seemed uncomfortable. Someone's saying you're a child kidnapper, that you stole a baby. What, Mr. Williams? I can explain. Michael told the whole story. His boss listened, nodding. I believe you, Michael, but I need all the paperwork in order. Any document proving you have the right to keep the child. I can't have problems with the police, understand? I'll take care of it. The lawyer is handling it. Good, because I like you, kid. You straightened yourself out fighting for the boy. That's admirable. But I have to protect myself too. Michael left determined to speed up the legal process. He called Mr. Goldstein, who scheduled an emergency meeting. Clearly, someone is trying to sabotage you, the lawyer analyzed. We need to move faster. I'll file for temporary custody. Tomorrow. What if they deny it? We'll appeal. Michael, do you have witnesses from when you found the baby? Mrs. Jenkins saw everything. Great. We'll need her testimony. And anyone else who can speak in your favor. The following week was a marathon of documents, testimonies, and evaluations. Michael underwent a psychological assessment. The social worker visited the boarding house 3 times. Neighbors were interviewed. Ethan went through another round of medical exams. Amid it all, Michael kept his routine. Work during the day, Ethan at night. The baby was growing, gaining weight, getting smarter every day. He already recognized Michael's voice, calming. Instantly when he heard it, it was on one of those nights while preparing a bottle that Michael got an unexpected visitor. A soft knock at the door. When he opened it, he could hardly believe his eyes. It was Jessica. But a different Jessica. 2 thin, deep dark circles, wrinkled clothes. I'm sorry, she said quickly. I know I promised not to come back, but I needed to see him one more time. Jessica, it's dangerous for you to be here. What about Derek? He thinks I'm in Michigan. I came in secret. I'll take the bus back today. Please, Michael, just 5 minutes. Against his better judgment, Michael let her in. Jessica approached the crib where Ethan slept, silent tears streaming down her face. He's beautiful, she whispered. He's grown so much in such a short time. Jessica, what really happened? Why did you come back? She sank heavily into the chair. I can't, Michael. I can't live without him. I try, but it's like a part of me was ripped away. I don't sleep. I don't eat. But you said it was dangerous. And it is. She covered her face with her hands. Derek has connections everywhere. If he finds out Ethan is alive, that I lied to him. But at the same time, how can I abandon my son? You didn't abandon him. You protected him. Protected him by throwing him in a dumpster? You stayed and watched. You made sure someone good would find him. It was the hardest, bravest decision a mother could make. Jessica cried for long minutes. When she finally calmed down, she shared more of her story. Derek had seduced her when she was just 18. Charming at first, he'd turned controlling, violent. When she got pregnant, he lost it. He said I'd ruin his career, that a cop with a bastard child wouldn't get promoted. He gave me 2 choices, abort or disappear with the baby after he was born. And you chose to protect Ethan. I tried. But look where we are now, you fighting to keep him, me on the run, Derek doing his worst. Listen, Michael had an idea. Mr. Goldstein, the lawyer, he can help you too, maybe get a restraining order against Derek. You don't understand, Jessica shook her head. Derek has friends everywhere, judges, prosecutors, police captains. That's why I ran instead of reporting him. Ethan woke up from their talking. When he saw Jessica, he reached out his little arms as if he remembered her. Can I? She asked. Michael handed the baby to her. Mother and son gazed at each other, a silent recognition passing between them. He knows I'm his mother, Jessica. murmured in awe. He'll always know. Even if I can't be with him, he'll always know he was loved. Michael, what if I fought for him? If I tried to keep my son? Michael's heart froze, but he forced himself to answer calmly. It's your right, but think carefully. Derek is still a threat. Can you protect Ethan? No, she admitted, defeated. I have no home, no job, nothing. And with Derek hunting me, then leave things as they are. I'll take care of him. You rebuild your life. Maybe in the future. In the future, he'll call me auntie. Call someone else mom. The bitterness in her voice was palpable. Not necessarily. We can tell him the truth when he's older, that his mother loved him so much she made the greatest sacrifice possible. Jessica stayed a few more minutes, memorizing every detail of Ethan. When she handed him back to Michael, she looked years older. Take good care of him, she pleaded, and if one day he asks about me, I'll tell him his mother is the bravest woman I've ever known. Jessica left without looking back. Michael stood at the window, watching her disappear into the night, his heart aching for that young mother's pain. The following days brought good news. Mr. Goldstein secured a favorable injunction. Michael would have temporary custody of Ethan while the case proceeded. It was an important but partial victory. It's just the beginning, the lawyer warned. Now comes the hard part, proving you can provide a stable home. What else do I need to do? Keep working, keep the boy healthy and in school when the time comes, and most importantly, stay out of trouble. Any misstep could be used against. However, the warning proved prophetic. 2 weeks later, Michael was heading home from work when two men approached him. Michael Davis. One of them flashed a badge. Civil police, you need to come with us. Why? What did I do? A report of child abuse. We'll need to verify. Michael felt the world spin. But that's a lie. You can ask anyone. We'll sort this out at the station. Cooperate and it'll be resolved quickly. He had no choice but to go with them. At the station, he endured hours of questioning. Where did he find the baby? Why didn't he call the authorities right away? Was he sure he didn't know the mother beforehand? Did anyone see you take the baby from the trash? The officer pressed. Mrs. Jenkins. She saw everything. Convenient. A friend of yours. She's not just a friend. She's known all over the neighborhood. She's run the bakery for 30 years. The interrogation dragged on late into the night. Michael answered the same questions dozens of times, his worry for Ethan growing by the minute. Finally, Mr. Goldstein arrived. My client won't answer anything further without me present, he declared, and I hope you have a warrant for this. Arbitrary detention. You're not being detained, the officer said, just clarifying a report, which conveniently came in right after we got temporary custody. Mind telling me who filed it? Anonymous tip. Of course it was, Mr. Goldstein snapped. Let's go, Michael. If they want to speak to my client again, they'll go through me. On the way back, the lawyer was stern. This isn't over. Someone really wants Ethan taken from you. Derek? Probably. But we can't prove it. The important thing is not to slip up. Any mistake will be used against you. Back at the boarding house, Michael found Ethan being cared for by Mrs. Thompson and the other residents. The baby was fine, unaware of the drama unfolding around him. We heard they took you. In, Mrs. Thompson said, furious. What nonsense. Everyone here knows how well you take care of the little one. Someone's trying to ruin me. Well, they'll have to go through all of us, declared Sharon, who had rushed over as soon as she heard. First thing tomorrow, I'll see. Talk to my contacts. This won't stand. The support warmed Michael's heart, but he knew the battle was far from over. That night, as he rocked Ethan to sleep, he made a silent promise. No matter what came, he wouldn't give up. That little boy deserved a chance in life, and he'd do everything to give it to him. In the weeks that followed, the pressure intensified. 2 more anonymous reports came in. Inspectors showed up to scrutinize the boarding house for violations, and Michael's boss received threatening calls. But for every attack, their support network fought back. Mrs. Jenkins organized a neighborhood petition vouching for Michael's character. Sharon mobilized her City Hall connections. Mrs. Thompson turned the boarding house into a fortress, with residents taking shifts to ensure Michael and Ethan were never alone. It was during this turmoil that something extraordinary happened. Michael was at a nearby park, Ethan in his stroller. when a well-dressed woman approached. "Excuse me, are you Michael, the one who found the baby?" Michael immediately tensed. "Why?" "My name is Catherine Blackwell. I'm a businesswoman. I live nearby. I heard your story and, well, I'd like to help." "Help how?" Catherine sat beside him on the bench. She was around 60, with perfectly styled silver hair and understated but expensive clothes. "I lost my grandson 2 years ago. Leukemia. Since then, I've looked for ways to help children in difficult situations. Your story moved me. Ma'am, I appreciate it, but I don't need charity." "It's not charity," she interrupted. "It's an investment in Ethan's future. I'd like to set up an educational fund for him. Ensure he has access to the best schools, courses, opportunities." Michael was speechless. Catherine continued, "I know you're fighting for custody. Imagine how much stronger your case would be if you could show that Ethan has a guaranteed future, with his education secured. Why would you do this for us? You don't even know us." "Because I believe in second chances. You got yours when you found Ethan. Now, I want to be part of his chance." Catherine left her card and walked away, leaving Michael stunned. Could it be true, or was it another trap? He consulted Mr. Goldstein, who looked into it. Catherine Blackwell was real, respected in the business community, known for her philanthropic work. "This is an incredible opportunity," the lawyer said. "With this kind of support, it'll be much harder for them to argue you're not fit to raise Ethan." The meeting with Catherine was scheduled for the following week. She welcomed Michael and Ethan into her office, an elegant yet cozy space on the top floor of a commercial building. "What a beautiful boy," she said, effortlessly picking Ethan up. "He has the same eyes as my little Max." As she played with the baby, Catherine explained her proposal. She would set up a trust fund in Ethan's name, with monthly deposits until he turned 25. The money could only be used for education, healthcare, and housing. "I don't want you to think I'm buying you," she clarified. "Michael, you're still his father. You make the decisions. The fund is just security." "That's too generous, Mrs. Blackwell. I don't know if I can accept." "You can, and you should, for Ethan." She looked out the panoramic window. "You know, my husband built this entire empire, but in the end, what mattered was family. Losing little Max taught us that money without purpose is just paper. Ethan is my purpose now." The agreement was formalized with Mr. Goldstein's oversight. The news spread quickly, changing the narrative. Suddenly, Michael wasn't just a homeless man trying to keep a child. He was the man who had saved a baby and earned the respect of important people. But Derek didn't give up easily. One Saturday morning, Michael was in the park with Ethan when Derek showed up, alone, out of uniform, but with the same threatening air. "I thought you got the message," Derek said, stepping closer. "The child isn't yours." "He's not yours either," Michael replied, holding Ethan protectively. "But he's my blood, and blood is blood." "Funny you say that now. Where was this blood when you had him thrown away?" Derek narrowed his eyes. "Watch your mouth, bum. I'm not a bum anymore. I'm a father. And you? What are you besides a coward who threatens women?" The argument was escalating when a voice interrupted. "Is there a problem here?" It was Captain Reynolds, Derek's superior, whom Mrs. Thompson had mentioned. He was in plain clothes, but his presence carried authority. "Captain," Derek paled. "It's nothing, just, I know you," Reynolds said to Michael, "the man who saved the baby. Mrs. Thompson speaks very highly of you." "Thank you, Captain." Reynolds turned to Derek, his tone shifting. "Officer, I suggest you walk away, and if I hear of any more inconveniences involving this child, we'll have a serious talk about your conduct." Derek left without another word, but the look he gave Michael promised this wasn't over. "If he bothers you again, come to me," Reynolds made clear. "I don't tolerate abuse of power in my department." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps those of us just starting out. Now back to the story. The encounter with Derek left Michael shaken. Despite all the support he'd gained, the officer was still a threat. That night, as he put Ethan to sleep, the weight of responsibility felt overwhelming. "Am I doing the right thing, little one?" he whispered to the sleeping baby. Wouldn't you be better off with a normal family, without all these problems? As if understanding, Ethan gripped Michael's finger tightly, a faint smile on his lips. As he slept, the answer was right there in that simple gesture of absolute trust. The next morning, Sharon arrived with important news. "I did it," she announced triumphantly. "A friend who works at the courthouse gave me the information. The hearing for permanent custody has been scheduled. 2 months. 2 months. Michael felt a mix of hope and apprehension. It's enough time to solidify everything. Your job, the situation here at the boarding house, Mrs. Blackwell's support. We'll prepare a flawless dossier." The preparations began immediately. Mr. Goldstein guided them through every detail: clothes for the hearing, how to behave, what to say. Witnesses were listed, documents organized. Catherine Blackwell proved to be a powerful ally. Beyond the educational fund, she used her influence to secure a spot for Ethan at a reputable private daycare when he was old enough. She also arranged for Michael to take a night vocational course. "Electricians always find work," she explained, "and it pays better than general labor." "Mrs. Blackwell, you're already doing too much." "Michael, let me tell you a secret," she interrupted. "Money is only good for 2 things: solving problems and creating opportunities. I'm doing both." The course was tough. Michael would leave work, rush to the boarding house to see Ethan, then head to class. He came home exhausted but determined. Every certificate earned was further proof that he was striving to give his son the best. Ethan grew visibly. By 3 months, he was already an active, smiling baby who recognized familiar voices and responded with little squeals of joy. The entire boarding house had fallen in love with him. It was on one of those study nights that Michael received a call that chilled his blood. Unknown number. "Michael?" It was Jessica, her voice tense. "I need to warn you, Derek found out where I am. He's coming after me and he knows you have Ethan." "How did he find out?" "I don't know. Someone must have seen me, told him." "Michael, he's out of control. He said if he can't have his son, no one will." "Where are you now?" "At the Detroit bus station. I'm trying to go farther, but I wanted to warn you." "Michael, protect my son, please." "Always, Jessica, listen. We have a hearing in 2 months if we get permanent custody." "I know. I'm rooting for you. Just tell him one day that his mother loved him. Even from afar, she always loved him." The call dropped. Michael immediately called Mr. Goldstein, then Captain Reynolds. Protective measures were discussed. Security at the boarding house was tightened, but Derek was clever. He didn't show up in person. Instead, he began a campaign of psychological terror. Silent calls in the dead of night, anonymous letters with veiled threats, distant photos of Ethan. "He wants me to snap," Michael told Sharon, showing her the latest letter. "Wants me to do something stupid that ruins the case." "Then we won't give him that satisfaction," she replied firmly. "Every threat gets documented, filed. He's digging his own grave." Indeed, Mr. Goldstein was building a parallel dossier on Derek's harassment. With Captain Reynolds' help, they uncovered a pattern of abusive behavior, other complaints buried, internal warnings ignored. "He's a powder keg," the lawyer explained. "If he keeps this up, he'll give them reason for a formal investigation. Then it all falls apart." Meanwhile, life went on. Michael had become a skilled electrician, picking up extra jobs on weekends. With the extra money, he rented a larger room at the boarding house, better suited for a child. Ethan took his first steps in that very room on a Sunday afternoon. Michael had set up a small play area with a rubber mat to cushion falls. The baby, now almost a year old, leaned against the couch and suddenly let go. "Come on, Ethan, come." "To Daddy." Michael knelt just a few steps away. The baby wobbled, took one unsteady step, then another. By the time he reached Michael's arms, the entire boarding house was at the door, alerted by the shouts of joy. "My champion!" Michael lifted him into the air, tears streaming freely. "You did it!" It was a moment of pure happiness, the kind that stays etched in memory forever. Mrs. Thompson cried openly, Mrs. Jenkins clapped, and Sharon snapped photos with her phone. "First step of many," Michael murmured, kissing Ethan's forehead. But the joy was short-lived. The next morning, As Michael was getting ready to take Ethan to the pediatrician for a routine checkup, he found an envelope slipped under the door. Inside was a single photo. Jessica, clearly distressed, being held by the arm by Derek. On the back, a message: "Found the bitch. You're next." Michael's legs trembled. Derek had found Jessica, the woman who had sacrificed everything to protect. Their son was now in the hands of the man who terrified her. He immediately called Captain Reynolds. "I need you here now," the captain said after hearing the details. "And bring the photo. This has gone too far." In less than an hour, Michael's apartment was full. Captain Reynolds, two trusted investigators, Mr. Goldstein and Sharon. Ethan, oblivious to the tension, played on the floor with building blocks. "This is kidnapping," Reynolds examined the photo. "Officer Derek has gone from abusing his authority to committing a serious crime. I'll report this to Internal Affairs immediately." "What about Jessica?" Michael was desperate. "He could do something to her." "We'll find her. I have contacts. In Michigan, I'll mobilize them. But Michael, you and Ethan need protection." It was decided that Michael and Ethan would stay temporarily at Catherine Blackwell's home. The businesswoman had private security, and her penthouse was a fortress. "Don't even think of refusing," Catherine cut off Michael's protests. "That man is dangerous and unhinged. You'll stay with me until this is resolved." The move happened that same afternoon. Catherine's penthouse was a world apart, spacious, luxurious, with a panoramic view of Chicago. Ethan was amazed by the space, crawling everywhere to explore. "It's been a while since this house had a child," Catherine smiled, watching the baby. "It needs some life." As they settled in, the wheels of justice finally began to turn. Internal Affairs opened a formal investigation against Derek. Search warrants were issued, but the officer had vanished, taking Jessica with him. 2 tense days passed. Michael barely slept, torn between worry for Jessica and fear that Derek would appear. Catherine tried to distract him, but it was hard. It was Ethan who brought a moment of lightness. One morning over breakfast, the baby pointed at Michael and said clearly, "Dada." Michael dropped his cup. Did he say Dada? Did he really, or am I imagining it? He did. Catherine was emotional. His first word. "Da, da, da, da," Ethan repeated, clapping his hands, delighted by the reaction he'd caused. Michael scooped him up, his heart overflowing. "That's right, my boy. I'm your daddy. Forever." Catherine discreetly wiped away a tear. Here was proof that blood ties were nothing compared to the bonds of the heart. The good news came the next day. Jessica had been found. She was in a hospital in Flint, hurt but alive. Derek had been arrested trying to flee to Canada. "Is she okay?" was Michael's first question to Captain Reynolds. "Physically, she'll recover. Emotionally, she'll need support. But the important thing is she's safe. Derek won't be bothering anyone for a long time." "Can I talk to her?" "I'll arrange it. But Michael, there's more." With his arrest, a lot came to light. Derek has a history of domestic violence, extortion, and abuse of power. The prosecution will seek the maximum sentence. It was a relief to know Derek was off the streets, but Michael couldn't stop thinking about Jessica. The young woman who had sacrificed everything for her son was now alone, hurt, probably blaming herself for everything. The call came 2 days later. Jessica's voice was weak, but there was a trace of hope that hadn't been there before. "Michael, how's Ethan?" "He's great, said his first word yesterday, Daddy." Silence on the other end, then a muffled sob. "That's good. I'm so glad he has you. Jessica, listen. Derek's been arrested. He won't be able to hurt you anymore." "I know. They're explaining everything to me here. They said I'll have to testify, tell them everything he did. It'll be hard, but necessary. And Jessica, when you recover, I want you to... No? Ethan will always know who his mother is, and the door will always be open for you. Michael, I don't deserve this. I abandoned my son. You saved your son. It's different. And now with Derek behind bars, maybe you two can build some kind of relationship. You do that. Let me be part of his life. Ethan deserves to know the brave woman who's his mother. When you're ready." More sobs. When Jessica spoke again, there was determination in her voice. "I'll get better. I'll get help, fix my life. And one day when I'm ready, I want to really know my son. Not as someone who sneaks away in the dead of night, but as someone he can be proud of. We'll be waiting. The conversation marked a turning point. With Derek locked up and Jessica safe, the path to the custody hearing became clearer. Mr. Goldstein was optimistic. With all this history, it's clear you saved Ethan from a potentially tragic situation. No judge will deny custody now. The following weeks were spent preparing intensely. Michael kept working, studying, taking care of Ethan. A routine settled in at Catherine's house. She'd become a surrogate grandmother, spoiling Ethan with educational toys and clothes. "Don't overdo it, Mrs. Blackwell," Michael tried to temper her. "I don't want him spoiled." "Nonsense," she dismissed. "Children need stimulation. And besides, what's mine is his now." Ethan thrived with all the attention. At 15 months, he was already running around the house, saying several words, showing an insatiable curiosity. Michael documented every moment, putting together an album he planned to show Jessica one day. The hearing was approaching when another twist happened. Michael was at the park with Ethan when a woman he hadn't seen in years approached him. "Michael, is that really you?" He looked up and nearly fell back. It was Jennifer, his sister-in-law, his late wife's sister. "Jen? My God, it's been so long." 10 years, she said, eyes welling up. "Since the funeral." They hugged awkwardly. Jennifer looked at Ethan in the stroller. "Is this your son?" "It's a long story. I've got time." They sat on a bench and Michael told her everything. His time on the streets, finding Ethan, the fight for custody. Jennifer listened silently, tears falling at several points. "Sarah would be so proud," she said when he finished, referring to her sister. "She always said you had the biggest heart." "I let her down, Jen. After she and David were gone, I just gave up." "You were grieving. We all were. But look at you, you found your way back and saved this child in the process." Ethan chose that moment to demand attention, raising his little arms to Michael. "Daddy, up!" As Michael picked him up, Jennifer watched with a sad smile. "He's the same age David would be now." "I know, I think about it every day." "Can I?" She held out her arms for Ethan. The boy went without hesitation, always sociable. Jennifer held him as if he were made of glass. "Hi, Ethan, I'm Aunt Jen. So nice to meet you." It was the beginning of another connection. Jennifer started visiting regularly, bringing a link to Michael's past that he thought was lost forever. She had photos, stories, memories of happier times. "Sarah's family always asks about you," she said during one visit. "When they hear about Ethan, they'll want to meet him." "Do you think they'll accept him?" "I mean, he's not blood-related. Michael, family is who we choose. You chose Ethan, he chose you. The rest is just details." Jennifer's presence brought an emotional stability Michael didn't know he needed. She helped him organize old photos, talk about Sarah and David without falling apart, and integrate the past with the present. "You know," she said one day watching Michael play with Ethan, "Sarah always said you'd be a wonderful father." She was right. "I had good training," Michael replied softly. "David taught me so much in those 2 years. And now you have a second chance. Not everyone gets that luck." The hearing was just a week away when Mr. Goldstein brought surprising news. "Jessica wants to testify in favor of custody." "Really?" Michael couldn't believe it. "She's in Chicago at a women's shelter. She's getting treatment, working, said she wants to do right by her son." "Won't that complicate things? I mean, she's the biological mother." "We've already talked. She'll make it clear she supports you as the legal guardian, that it was her choice for Ethan's sake. In fact, it strengthens your case." The day of the hearing arrived with a clear autumn sky. Michael wore the suit Catherine had insisted on buying, and Ethan looked impeccable in a sailor outfit. The courtroom was full. Mrs. Jenkins, Sharon, Mrs. Thompson, Catherine, Jennifer, and several residents of the boarding house, all there to show support. The judge, Judge Walker, was a middle-aged man with a paternal air. He listened carefully as Mr. Goldstein presented the case, showing Michael's transformation, the stable environment he'd created for Ethan, and the support network. Witnesses took turns speaking. Mrs. Jenkins told of the rescue. Sharon spoke of Michael's dedication. Catherine explained the educational fund. Jennifer brought the family perspective. Then it was Jessica's turn. She entered nervously, thinner than before, but with a dignity she hadn't had before. She looked at Michael and Ethan, a small, sad smile on her lips. "Here's Jessica," the judge began gently. "Can you tell us your side of the story?" Jessica took a deep breath and began. She spoke about Derek, the threats, the desperation that led her to leave Ethan by the dumpster, about watching until Michael found him, about knowing she'd made the right choice. "I love my son more than anything," she said, her voice trembling but firm. "And it's because I love him that I know the best place for him is with Michael. I've seen how he cares for Ethan, the love he has. He's the father my son deserves." "You don't wish to seek custody?" the judge asked. "Not now. Maybe never. I need to rebuild myself first, become someone Ethan can admire. Michael already is that person. All I ask is that someday I can be part of my son's life in some way, but always respecting Michael as his father." An emotional murmur filled the room. Several people wiped away tears. Finally, it was Michael's turn to speak. He stood, holding Ethan, and spoke from the heart. He told of the night he found Ethan, how that baby had saved his life just as much as he'd saved the baby's, about the challenges, the fears, but mostly about the love he felt. "I know I'm not perfect," he concluded. "I know I don't have much to offer materially, but what I have I share with Ethan, my time, my love, my life. He gave me a purpose when I had none left. He taught me that it's always possible to start over." Ethan, as if understanding the importance of the moment, wrapped his arms around Michael's neck and said clearly, "Daddy, my daddy." The judge smiled. "I think Ethan has already given his verdict." Judge Walker withdrew to deliberate. They were the longest minutes of Michael's life. Ethan, sensing the tension, stayed quietly in his lap. When the judge returned, his face was serene. "This is a unique case," he began. "A child abandoned in terrible circumstances, saved by a man society had left behind. It would be easy to follow protocol, place the child in the system, wait for a traditional family." He paused, looking directly at Michael. "But what I see here is a family, not traditional certainly, but a true family, bound by love and mutual choice. Michael Davis, by the authority vested in me, I grant you full custody of Ethan Davis." The room erupted in applause. Michael hugged Ethan so tightly the boy protested. Tears streamed freely down faces throughout the room. Jessica approached, hesitantly. "Can I hug you both?" It was a three-way embrace, full of emotion and unspoken promises. An unusual family, forged by adversity, but united by love. Outside the courthouse, the group celebrated when Michael noticed something. On the opposite corner, partially hidden, stood a man watching. For a moment, Michael feared it might be one of Derek's associates, but then the man approached, and Michael saw he was someone homeless, worn clothes, unshaven, the same lost look he himself had once had. "Sorry to bother you," the man said timidly. I heard the story about the baby in the dumpster. Wanted to see if it was true." "It's true," Michael confirmed. "Why?" It gives hope. No, seeing someone like us make it out of that life, taking care of a child, being somebody again." Michael felt a lump in his throat. He handed Ethan to Jennifer and stepped closer to the man. "What's your name?" "Robert, sir." "Don't call me sir. I'm Michael. And let me tell you something, Robert. There's always a way to start over. Always. Sometimes we just need a reason." He pulled out a card Sharon had made with information about social services. "Look for this lady. Tell her Michael sent you. She can help." Robert took the card as if it were gold. "Thank you, really, thank you." As the man walked away, Catherine remarked, "Are you always going to do this? Try to save everyone?" "Not everyone," Michael said, taking Ethan back. "But if I can help one or two, it's worth it. Someone helped me when I needed it." "Good daddy," Ethan declared, making everyone laugh. The ride home was a celebration. Catherine had prepared a reception at the penthouse, with cake, balloons, and even a small inflatable playground for Ethan. While everyone celebrated, Michael stepped away for a moment, going out to the balcony. Chicago stretched before him. Millions of lights, millions of stories. Jessica joined him. "Thank you," she said simply. For what? For everything. For saving Ethan, for forgiving me, for letting me be part of this in some way. You'll always be his mother, Jessica. Nothing changes that. But you're the father he needs and deserves. She paused. "Can I visit? Sometimes." "Of course. Ethan should know where he came from. And when he's ready, we'll tell him the truth, that his mother was the bravest woman in the world." They stood in silence, watching the city. Inside, they could hear Ethan laughing, surrounded by his big, chosen family. "You know," Jessica said, "I think in the end everything happened the way it was supposed to. If Derek hadn't, if I'd stayed with Ethan, he would have grown up in a violent home. Now he has this." She gestured to the party. "Real love." "We all do," Michael replied. "We were all reborn that night." The party went on until late. Ethan finally fell asleep in Michael's arms, exhausted from so much playing. One by one, the guests said their goodbyes, each reaffirming their commitment to keep supporting them. When only Catherine, Michael, and the sleeping Ethan remained, the businesswoman made an offer. "Michael, this house is too big for me alone. How about you two staying here permanently, not as a favor?" She raised her hand before he could protest us, "But as family. You'd be like a son living with his elderly mother, keeping me company." "Mrs. Blackwell, that's too generous. It's practicality. I get company, Ethan gets a grandmother, you get stability. Everyone wins." Michael looked at Ethan sleeping. The boy deserved stability, a real home. "Let's try it," he agreed, "but I'll pay rent, even if just symbolic." "Stubborn," Catherine smiled. "Just like my son. It'll work out." That night, already settled in the room that would now be theirs, Michael put Ethan in the crib and watched him sleep. So many twists in such a short time. From a hopeless, homeless man to a family man, with a job, a home, a future. He checked his phone and saw a message from Sharon. "Congratulations, official dad, first battle won. Now raise that boy to be as good a man as you." He smiled. There was still so much ahead. Ethan would grow up, ask tough questions about his origins. There would be challenges at school, adolescence, life, but they wouldn't be alone. They had a family. Unconventional but strong. From the crib, Ethan murmured something in his sleep. He seemed to be smiling. "Sleep, my son." Michael whispered, "Daddy's here. Daddy will always be here." And for the first time in over a decade, Michael Davis slept in complete peace. He was no longer the broken man who had lost everything. He was a father. He was loved. He had purpose. Life, with all its unexpected turns, had given him the most precious second chance. Outside, Chicago continued its nightly symphony of sirens, honks, and urban life. But inside that room, there was only peace. A father and a son, bound not by blood, but by something much stronger, the choice to love each other, to be family. The future stretched before them, full of possibilities. And Michael knew, with absolute certainty, that no matter what came, they would face it together, because that's what real family is. Not about where we come from, but where we go together. The end of the story, and so ends our moving journey. Now tell us what you thought of this story of perseverance and love. Did Michael make the right choice fighting for Ethan? We'd love to read your thoughts in the comments. Thank you so much for joining us.